Okay, so I've already annotated my extract. I'm now going to focus on writing PEELC paragraphs. Make sure that you use your structure strips to give you those sentence stems to work with if you are struggling. It also has your gold terms on it, so you can be using those. You should also have this in your literature book. So these are some sort of emotions that you can talk about. And you've also got some sophisticated analytical verbs just to add to the sophistication of your writing. Okay, so I'm going to start with the question's asking me about the character of Frankenstein and how he's presented in this extract from chapter 9. So I'm going to start with Shelley uses natural imagery to present Victor as a character suffering an existential crisis. So I've got my point, I've responded to the question, I've got a method, I've answered the question, and I'm using a gold term. Okay, and remember, an existential crisis, it just means he's questioning his own existence. And we know that in this case because he's contemplating suicide, okay? And I don't need to say the quote, I'm just going to use a semicolon, put a quotation. I was tempted to plunge into the silent lake. Okay. Now you can use your structure strip that says this makes the reader feel or this could convey. So you can say, if you want to use the reader, you don't actually have to, but if you're more comfortable saying this makes the reader feel, then you could say this conveys to the reader that Frankenstein is contemplating ending his own life. And then I can extend that. So obviously I've got, one explanation, but I just want to add to that a little bit and explain sort of why he's doing that. Because his creation, I'm just going to say, so he believes, because actually he doesn't know yet. Remember, this is chapter 9, he hasn't spoken to the monster yet, so he doesn't know for certain that the monster has caused the death of William and as a result the execution of Justine. But he believes this to be the case, which is quite interesting without actually speaking to the monster. So, ending his own life because his creation, so he believes, has killed, murdered if you like, his brother William, leading to the execution of Justine. And just by adding that, I'm already sort of linking to elsewhere in the novel by giving it a little bit of context. That's fine, just extended that a little bit, okay? Furthermore, okay, this illustrates, you don't need to say to the reader, but again, so this illustrates that Frankenstein feels some guilt or remorse. Some guilt, I'm going to say, and remorse for his, I'm going to say, irresponsible actions. Okay, so what I've really done is just sort of completed my AO1 there. I've got 2 explanations. So the next step, then is to zoom in on a word. I could talk about tempted, which is quite an interesting verb there. I could talk about plunge, and I could talk about, if I'm focused on natural imagery, I could talk about the silent lake. I think I'm going to talk about tempted first. Remember, you can do more than one word, and again, that develops your AO2. So, the verb tempted is, I'm going to say biblical in nature, and is in the semantic field of sin. Now remember, because I'm not using saying that Shelley uses the semantic field, I can just mention that this particular word is in the semantic field of sin. There are actually other words in the extract that are in the semantic field of sin, but I'm just going to say is in the semantic field of sin, and indicates that suicide is a sin. Okay, reinforcing Victor's tainted character. So I'm linking back to the question by mentioning character, but also this idea that he has sinned. Okay, and I'm going to say not only because he's contemplating suicide, thinking about suicide, but also because he's violated nature by, or through, might be a more appropriate preposition, through his creation of the monster. Okay, so I've zoomed in on a keyword again. Guys, you can do more than one. You want to keep track of your time, but that is going to develop your AO2. Now I need to think about AO3. So contextually, so that signals I'm shifting now to AO3. Shelley was a romantic who believed in the supremacy of nature. Okay, and that's an important romantic belief. And Victor's violation of nature acts as an allegorical warning. Yeah. And I'm going to say his resulting guilt and remorse acts as an allegorical warning of the dangers of science. Okay, and that is okay. I can maybe, if I want, just to be really clear that I am talking about the character of Victor, suggest that the character of Victor is presented as guilty of sins against nature. Okay, so I can link back, that's not really necessary, but just make sure you've got your AO 1, 2 and 3. You get your AO 1 from your sort of quotation, your explanation. When you're saying natural imagery or you're using sort of a device in the very beginning, then you also have your AO2, and when you zoom in on a key word like tempted, you've got your AO2, and then contextually is your AO3. Okay, when you start talking about romanticism or the sublime, which I certainly could have mentioned there as well. So that's what you need to do. You then need to carry that on for 3 more paragraphs. Remember to alternate, one from the extract, one from elsewhere in the text, okay? And so certainly you could talk about how dangerous is the acquisition of knowledge, and Victor's thirst for knowledge as maybe being his fatal flaw, perhaps in your next paragraph, and then go back to the extract.